This is interesting. Texans just got into a nail and claw fight against the Oakland Raiders, aka the Las Vegas Raiders, last week at home in Houston. The Texans' offense that I thought was fixed didn't look that fixed last week, and their defense didn't look that great. Now, granted, they were in a look ahead spot. They're probably looking ahead towards the Chargers and sleeping on the Chargers because they're playing the Raiders. Who can blame them for overlooking the Raiders, especially when the Raiders have looked that bad? But that Raiders O line kind of stood up pretty well against the Texans team, and the defense was sleepwalking. Despite the defense obviously scoring a pick six on one of the first plays of that game, it was a very disappointing performance from C.J. Stroud, who looked horrible, and it was a very weird performance from the Texans, who have been hot and one of the scariest teams in the NFL, in my opinion. Now they're facing one of the hottest teams in the NFL also as well, the Chargers, who continually overcome adversity, and Justin Herbert finally looks pretty healthy now. He had a fractured hand, and now, coming off a great momentum starter against the Cowboys last week, he looks really good, and he's probably ready to go. This is an interesting game. This is going to be a low scoring game. This is a defensive game. This is a battle of the interior lines. Both O lines aren't good. I would say the Texans' O line is better just because that Chargers O line is so banged up. But the Chargers didn't allow a sack last week. Granted, the Cowboys didn't have Quentin Williams, but that's pretty big. They're facing Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. this week. They're also facing Alshire at linebacker, and in the secondary, you know what the Texans have. But obviously, this is a massive step up for this banged up O line and the Chargers facing Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson. This is a tough game. The Chargers are -1.5 favorites. I really don't know what to do here. I really like the Houston Texans as much as I fear them. I don't fear that offense. And I'm going to be honest here. This is a battle of the interior lines. As much as I want to pick the better quarterback, as much as I want to pick the better coach team, seemingly, in the Chargers, I have to pick the Houston Texans because they have better interior lines on both sides. They have a D line that's going to cause havoc for this banged up Chargers line, no matter how intact that O line looked last week. And I truly think the Texans were in a look ahead spot last week against the Raiders. They overlooked the Raiders, and that's why that game was so close. And I think, despite the Chargers' defense being really good and one of the most slept on units in the NFL, I think the Texans' offense will play better than it did last week, which is shocking because they played poorly against the Raiders' defense, which, despite having Max Crosby, isn't a good one. But give me Houston. I think they have the better O line slightly, just because the Chargers O line is banged up, and they definitely have the better defense. And I think they're going to abuse this Chargers O line, despite how much more I like Herbert compared to Stroud, and honestly, how much more I like this offense in the Chargers compared to the Houston Texans, because they have Vidal, Amari, and Hampton.